So what's so bad about 3D printing guns? Well, the introduction of 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing, has the potential to affect the world by simplifying construction, shortening supply and distribution chains. But what about 3D printing guns? Well, for decades, weapon manufacturing has been the domain of arm industry heavyweights like Glock and Sig Sauer. Making a gun from scratch at home required thousands of dollars of equipment and years of engineering expertise, but in recent years has begun to change. Advancements in 3D printing technology have yielded increasingly reliable 3D printed firearms, many of which require no federally regulated components to function. Below, we will break down the basics of plastic 3D printed firearms, controversy generated by the swelling movement to deliver them to the masses. So what is a 3D printed gun? In simplest terms, it's a firearm that includes components manufactured with a 3D printer, but 3D printed guns vary a lot. Some models like 3D printed gun company Defense Liberator can be made almost entirely on a 3D printer. Others require many additional parts, which are often metal. For example, many 3D printed gun blueprints focus on a weapon's lower receiver, which is basically the chassis of a firearm. Recent history, a Law Texas student and employees at his nonprofit company made headlines in 2013 by a 3D printing a plastic gun double the Liberator and posting blueprints on the internet. Although primitive, the single-shot weapon fired multiple live rounds. Well over 100,000 individuals downloaded the blueprints before the U.S. government intervened. The gun features a metal piece, although potentially removable, and a firing pin to make it detectable. And in early 2014, an individual in Japan 3D printed the Zigzag plastic revolver, but because of the country's strict anti-gun laws, the maker of the weapon received a 2-year prison sentence for producing several guns and posting instructional videos on the internet. Since then, 3D printing such weapons has flourished. For example, police in Oregon arrested 2 individuals for legally possessing an AR-15 assault rifle in June of 2015. Authorities believe its low receiver, the key to what makes it a gun, was 3D printed. A weapon and 3D printing enthusiast produced the Shuddy, a semi-automatic handgun, in 2016. He made 95% of the weapon in plastic on a machine that cost less than $5,000. Fired at least 800 rounds, and the individual later announced he made an improved version. And at a airport in Nevada of 2016, the US TSA found a 3D printed revolver and a carry-on luggage. Authorities detected the gun only because it contained live rounds. 1 month later, a YouTube vlogger 3D printed the plastic Songbird, which uses rubber bands for springs and a roofing nail for a firing pin. This gun can shoot multiple 35-7 caliber rounds, but during early 2017, an individual received 3.5-year prison sentence for unlawfully manufacturing and dealing firearms. He used 3D printers and a computer numeric control milling machine to make the lower receivers for AR-15 rifles. Advances, other individuals continue to push boundaries on what they can produce with this technology. For instance, in late 2015, an anonymous person used 3D printer and commonly available parts to make a handheld electromagnetic projectile launcher or railgun. The weapon fires rods made of Teflon, graphite, aluminum, and copper coated tungsten at a speed of about 560 miles per hour. While the law prohibits convicted felons from obtaining or producing guns, 3D printing allows such individuals to secretly make undetectable weapons. In separate raids in Australia and nearby Gold Coast, police found 3D printed plastic parts and fully functional loaded guns. And according to the investigator, we can identify most, if not all, of the major components of a weapon. To us, it appears that they are complete weapons just requiring assembly. Undetectable ghost guns, those lacking serial numbers, represent another type of potentially illegal weapon that individuals can 3D print. And in October 2014, the Texas company began offering the Ghost Gunner, a compact CNC milling machine people can use to produce any metal part for any purpose. However, its marketing focuses on making such pieces for untraceable weapons. It comes with the digital blueprints for AR-15 lower receiver. Pre-orders of the 1,500 device sold in just 2 days. Throughout history, people have distinguished or concealed guns in such items such as tobacco pipes, cameras, canes, umbrellas, pocket watches. But one of the strengths of 3D printing is customization, which makes the practice possible in a broader range of products. Thus, 3D printed gun might look like a shoe, hairbrush, or soda can. The look of such weapon depends only on the designer's imagination, skill in using software and 3D printers, and choice of a machine. High-profile cases are the Texas company sued in 2013 after the U.S. Department of State forced the removal of the internet of their blueprints pertaining to the Liberator. Both parties later settled, which allowed the reposting in later of 2018. However, just before that date, several states and the District of Columbia sued the DOS in a federal court in an attempt to block the company from reposting. This effort actually succeeded when the judge ordered the DOS to put the settlement on hold pending a trial. Moreover, the court's injunction stated that the files cannot be uploaded to the internet, but they can be emailed, mailed, or secretly transmitted or otherwise published within the United States. Thus, the company owner announced that he would sell the blueprints via email or mail to anyone who wanted them. He received hundreds of thousands of orders before stepping down as the company director. Individuals continued to push the boundaries of what they can produce with this technology. Lawmakers face challenges in regulating 3D printing weapons, but they have made strides. For instance, November of 2013, Philadelphia became the first city to enact legislation related to such use of technology. The law prohibits making or owning these weapons. And in December of 2013, following the production of the Liberator and related media coverage, lawmakers extended the Federal Undetectable Firearms Act, which forbids manufacturing or possession for 10 years. As a result of this settlement, which the Texas company, the U.S. Congress also has begun to consider legislation to ban online posting of 3D printable weapon blueprints, as well as 3D printing of some weapons. But in other news, California enacted a law that went into force on January 1st, 2018, which requires 3D printed guns to have a serial number and a permanent metal component. Owners must register the gun, and they cannot sell or transfer them. Violation constitutes a misdemeanor. But unfortunately, such laws prove difficult to enforce unless authorities catch someone with an untraceable, undetectable, or unregistered 3D printed gun. This technology can also help the people like the U.S. military or organizations like the U.S. military has employed 3D printing for the U.S. military has employed 3D printing for its purpose for a grenade launcher called the Rambo in March of 2017, which printed extras for the springs, the fasteners, the weapon fires 3D printed grenades, and then personnel for the FBI's TEDAC employ 3D printers to study whether terrorists can use the technology to make bombs. The agency aims to think ahead and prepare for modern horror. So is it illegal to make a gun using 3D printer? In most cases, yes. The federal law prohibits unlicensed manufacturing of firearms, including those made using a 3D printer, as long as they include metal components. In the absence of federal regulation, a handful of states have taken their own steps to clamp down on the creation of homemade guns. California, anyone manufacturing a firearm, again, is legally required to obtain a serial number for the gun from the state, regardless of how it's made. In New Jersey, you are supposed to obtain a federal manufacturing license before you 3D print a gun. The state also criminalized the manufacture, sale, or possession of undetectable firearms and made it illegal to purchase parts to make unserialized gun. Several states, including New Mexico, Virginia, are considering bills that would enact similar restrictions. What about sharing the blueprints online? Well, the legality of sharing the files required to print the guns and the gun components is murky territory. No federal legislation bans the practice, but in 2019, the Trump administration transferred oversight of gun exports from the State Department to Commerce Department, which would have rolled back restrictions on releasing 3D printed gun blueprints. But a second suit filed by the Coalition of State Attorneys Generals has kept oversight of the files with the State Department pending future legislation. New Jersey's Attorney General is a plaintiff in the case. If a company like Defense Distributor can simply sell printable gun blueprints to their customers without running the user required background checks to make sure someone's not a criminal, it would blow up the entire regime of firearm laws that have been in this country, he said. Conclusion of this is that people with unlawful intent can misuse 3D printing, but this does not mean that this technology is inherently flawed. People are. Although the size of the problem could increase, this only holds true because 3D printing is so revolutionary and descriptive. Governments and law enforcement agencies must learn the risks of this technology, plan accordingly, and also use it to solve crimes and serve other noble purposes. Thank you.